So I was watching VaatiVidya's latest video, entitled 15 Fabulous Secrets in Elden Ring. I'm a huge fan of all his videos, they're excellently written and incredibly well edited, but about halfway through this particular one, he made a point that I disagreed with so vehemently that I felt compelled to write a response to it. The section starts around 11:20. Vaati explains how a couple of months ago, a Redditor named Ragnarbreaker examined these pillars found in the Haligtree and came up with a theory about how they may represent Malenia and Miquella's history and give us a deeper understanding of the lore surrounding them. Vaati then goes on to reveal how this was quickly debunked, as these pillars were found to be identical to pillars used in Path of Exile, and therefore likely part of an asset library. He then goes on to explain the importance of not falling victim to apophenia, the phenomenon where individuals perceive connection between unrelated things, and how we should look at all evidence objectively. His takeaway from this story is what I disagree with so harshly. If this were the real world, and we were examining a scientific study, yes, of course, this kind of behaviour would be ridiculous. I wholeheartedly support the high value Vaati places upon objective evidence in a scientific environment. But this isn't a scientific environment, where things are either proven or unproven. This is an artistic one. A world where different people can draw different meanings from the same thing, and both be equally correct, particularly in games like Elden Ring, that's so shrouded in mystery and the unknown. Is this true? People should be able to make these suggestions, even suggestions as far-fetched as claiming they know a man who turned into a giant Cartha sandworm, without being expected to be called wrong for doing it. Not wrong in the sense that their theory is incorrect, of course, you can go right ahead and do that, but morally wrong, as if they shouldn't be doing it, because they totally should. Weird artwork, repeating patterns, ambiguous architecture, all these things have been put into FromSoft's world to look at, to examine, to extrapolate theories from. It's half the fun. I hardly think it's ego-stroking or misleading, as Vaati puts it, to do this sort of thing. Especially when the example he's using to demonstrate this doesn't even really push for the conviction of this theory. The original post on Reddit makes no affirmation that this is a solid truth. I went and read this post after I watched the video, and I personally read this as being very hypothetical. In fact, Vaati's interpretation that Ragnarbreaker truly believes this, or is trying to pass it off as a solid truth, is almost absurd. Some of the images on the pillar are so up for interpretation that you can't even really tell what they are. Vaati must believe OP is deluded if he truly thinks that he's done anything more than point out an interesting insight that may or may not be true. I would very much like to know what Vaati thinks these pillars represent, because yes, they're from an asset library, and yes, of course, the original artist had no intention to make these look like Malenia and Miquella. But that doesn't change the fact that these pillars exist in the lands between. Someone was born in this world, grew up, studied masonry, and crafted these pillars with their own hands. They must have had some inspiration, and since these pillars are found around Miquella's Haligtree, I think it's perfectly reasonable to suggest that they might represent Miquella and Malenia. To suggest. Note how, like Ragnarbreaker, I'm not pushing for 100% concrete proven fact that these do represent Miquella and Malenia. I've suggested a possibility, which, given that this is a piece of art and not a petri dish, is worth exploring and sharing with others. The other possibility, of course, is that this is all a game, and none of it means anything. A possibility which would put Vaati out of a job, since looking at these worlds as if they were real and examining the potential meaning behind different design decisions is what he does best. Vaati also mentions that he did something similar to what Ragnarbreaker has done here in his joint timeline video, where he cherry-picked patches of evidence that collated together into a theory that suggested all From's titles are connected. He tells us that many people in the comments of that video now believe that they are indeed connected, and that the video should serve as a warning not to be misled by sexy Australian men's voices. But if people are now going around believing that this is true, who is Vaati to say that they're wrong? Once again, this is a series of games with highly ambiguous lore. It isn't surprising that different people draw different conclusions from the same thing. We can call them wrong, but it isn't the same as calling someone who, I don't know, doesn't believe in the moon wrong or whatever it is they're saying now. There's no objective scientific evidence for any of this, merely increasingly stronger evidence for certain perspectives. If a bunch of people now truly believe that these games are connected based on what little evidence Vaati has presented, and they're entirely convinced by Vaati's arguments in that video, and they enjoy these games to a greater extent with that conviction in their minds, then who are we to say they're wrong? I agree that it would not do to push other, better evidence theories aside when analysing for interest, but most absurd theories like this bask in creativity. To cast them aside and tell people not to do that seems shallow-minded, and it feels strange to even suggest that when talking about the legendary VaatiVidya himself. Vaati obviously places a lot of value on empirical, well-evidenced theories, which is fine. I think most people do, myself included. But in this video at least, he is being overly defensive of it, to such an extent that he's mistaken analysis of interest as a statement of fact, as he says many have over his joint timeline video. Ragnarbreaker may not have known that this pillar was from an asset library when he made his post, but this doesn't take away from the insights he's made into this piece of artwork. I hope this hasn't come across as being too aggressive. I'm pretty passionate about analysis of artwork like this, and seeing Vaati put down such an excellent example of it admittedly upset me a little bit. If anyone sees this and disagrees with me, please let me know. It could be that I've massively misinterpreted Vaati's argument. And of course, I mean no ill will to Vaati himself. I'm hardly going to hunt him down because of a disagreement over the amount of evidence needed to put forward a theory about Elden Ring. I do also realise that a lot of this video sounds like I am Ragnarbreaker defending my own post, to which I can only assure you I am not. Otherwise, thank you for listening to this rant. And as a very quick addendum to this video, I do also want to point out that this is in no regard a defence of people who state that these things are facts and you should believe them their way. It is merely just a plea to better understand, or rather better go along with what other people say, and understand that, okay, you believe that, I think you're wrong, and I'm also not saying not to call these people wrong. If they come up with ridiculously stupid theories, please say they're wrong. Like, I'm not interested in not hurting anyone's feelings here. I'm just interested in the preservation of the ability to all come together with all these different theories and just all bask around in all the creativity and throw stuff up in the air and have fun with it, which I feel like Vaati was kind of saying not to do, which is what I disagree with. I hope that is clear. Okay, thank you for listening. Goodbye.